Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Root Institute. Today, I have the great honor of speaking with the esteemed Tony and Emmy Award winning LaChanze. She's with us today to talk about all things Broadway, her illustrious career, and basically the ongoing fight for diversity on Broadway. So, welcome, LaChanze.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
I guess the first thing I want to talk about is for those who may not know all of your background, maybe you could share some of the highlights of your career, some of the roles that people should know you for. I know Once on This Island, I saw you in that and was amazed. Just share a little bit about yourself and your work.
Let's see. That's an interesting question because I never have to pick my favorite because they're all my favorites. But I guess people might know me from my very first leading role on Broadway that you mentioned, which was Once on This Island. That was back in 1991. Since then, it's been revived on Broadway. But that was my very first entry into the industry as a Broadway leading actor. And I've gone on to do on Broadway. I was in Ragtime. I won the Tony for Miss Celie in The Color Purple, the original cast. And my latest Broadway musical that I starred in was the Donna Summer musical.
You've done quite a bit with television as well. I'm sure people recognize you from many of your roles with The Blacklist and just so many others. What drew you to acting? I'm just curious.
Well, as a child, I started in this industry as a dancer. My mom, we lived in a variety of different states because my father was in the military, in the Coast Guard. So we traveled a bit, and our playmates were each other, my siblings and I. And so being with my siblings, I would dress them up in costumes and reenact stories and plays as kids to entertain ourselves. And then I just got the bug of it. And since I was already taking dance classes, I would choreograph little steps for them and put things together. At family barbecues, I became the one who would pull all the girls together and put together a little routine to get us started to entertain the rest of the family. That was a big hit in our family. But I have to say it just started as a young age. I was just drawn to performing, drawn to being on stage and to entertaining people and to making people laugh and cry and just get in touch with their emotions. I just enjoyed having the ability to do that.
Well, now I understand you are going to be opening in the end of October in a play called Trouble in Mind. Tell us about what that role is like and who you'll be portraying.
Sure. So Trouble in Mind is a classic American piece of theater that was written in 1955 by Alice Childress, who is one of our most notable Black female playwrights. This play was written at a time, during Jim Crow, during a time when Blacks were not equal or considered equal in our history. And to that end, the play, while it had success off Broadway, it was not allowed. The producers that were interested in moving it to Broadway were not satisfied with the portrayal of the male lead in the play, who plays my director. It is Trouble in Mind is a play within a play, and so they wanted her to make the white male character more likable. And she refused to change her words for that reason. The play centers around Willetta Meyer, my character, who's a middle-aged actor who is having a little bit of a new opportunity to be the star of a play. She's a musical theater actor who has now been given this opportunity, and she wants to do right by the piece and be as true to the piece as she can, but in the play, without giving it away, she has struggles. And the producers really wanted Alice to change the words, and she would not. 66 years later, we have courageous producers who are willing to bring the piece in its original, authentic wording to the stage, the way Alice Childress wrote it and intended it to be performed. And so I'm very excited to have this opportunity to do this role. It's being directed by Charles Randolph Wright, who has been championing this piece from, I have to say, for the past 66 years, it feels like, but it's one of his favorite pieces. And I actually did a reading of it with him about 12 years ago, playing a different character in the play. And now I'm playing Willetta, which I'm very excited about. But Charles is one of the most amazing directors that I know. And even though I've been in this industry over 35 years, this is my first time working on Broadway and being directed by a Black person.
Yeah, it kind of leads into another conversation that you've been a part of, which is just creating spaces where there's more diversity and inclusion on Broadway. Tell me about that movement that you've been a part of and how that's progressing.
I am one of the founding members of Black Theater United. We came together back in June of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And we felt that and so many others, but we felt that our industry, that so many of us Black artists have donated our time and efforts to support a variety of causes that the theater community gets behind. We felt at the time actually, it all came out of a tweet that I put out saying that my industry was curiously quiet at that time. There were so many other organizations that were putting out comments against the brutal murder of George Floyd and against the people denying Breonna Taylor and so many others that we'd lost. And I put a tweet out, just basically saying I find it interesting that my industry has been silent considering how much so many of us donate our time to so many different organizations. And particularly Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. That's a huge organization that every single show, we as actors stay after our curtain call for about a period of 6 weeks, twice a year, and encourage the audience to give us money on behalf of this organization. So there are several organizations that we have, as theater actors, that we have supported. In addition to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, there are many others. But I found that it was interesting that no one from our theater had spoken out in our industry. Audra McDonald saw that tweet. She called me immediately and she said, we should do something about this. I completely concur. And we called a bunch of our friends, about 19 of us that work in theater, that have had careers in theater that we could relate to, our peers. I think total, we make a joke about altogether, we make up about 500 years in this business because we're all of a certain age. And so we felt that we should pool our talents and our voice and create some sort of force that will affect change. And Black Theater United was born.
How do you think it was the movement was perceived? What was the initial kind of reaction to you and your peers taking this stance?
It's interesting that you say, how was it received? So many people were thankful because our members, we have Kenny Leon, Audra McDonald, Anna DeVere Smith, Norm Lewis, Wendell Pierce, Allison Tucker Mitchell, Brian Mitchell, Lilius White. We have well-known, and so many others, very well-known actors and directors. We have Shelley Williams, who's a founding member. We felt that if all of us could come together, we would make a powerful force. So people were grateful that there was this, that we came together and created this space. They didn't know what necessarily we were going to do, and at the time, neither did we. But we just knew we had to get together and say something. So we were very well received by mostly everyone in our industry. There are some groups that felt that we might have not been as inclusive as they wanted us to be. But there are so many other organizations. We felt that for the younger talent in our industry, they have a few groups that they've established, and we thought, well, they've got that covered. And then there are other organizations that sort of are together to support BIPOC artists, and we felt, well, they've got that covered. But there was not an organization that solely came together on behalf of Black talent, Black lives, and Black artists. And we wanted to focus on Black artists of all shapes and orientations.
I understand. And so do you think that with the heft and the might of the people that you've gathered together as part of this organization, that you've been able to make some headway in terms of people getting the message that this is important?
Yes, well, this year we actually very recently we launched a mission. We're calling it. It's called A New Deal for Broadway, and what it is we basically held a summit for about 6 months where we gathered the leaders of our industry, the theater owners, the lead theater producers, the unions, a bunch of creative artists and designers. And we met over 6 months with each group as Black Theater United members, and we came together discussing how we could make this better. What are we missing? What can we do to change the industry so that it won't be the same when we go back in September once the quarantine is over? And so it was very vigorous series of conversations. It was our facilitator was Kenji Yoshida, who is the founder of at NYU, the founder of the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and Belonging. He's the founder of that organization, and along with his partner, who's also a part of it, his name is David Glasgow, and they had this most incredible. The first session was just a learning session where you basically trained everyone who had agreed to be a part of the summit on equity and diversity, inclusion and belonging. And so from that moment, then we spread out in our different groups and we really got down to business. And last weekend, we released the deal and it's been picked up all over the world. It's been very well received.
I think it's very interesting that this whole mission and movement is coming around at the same time when we're going to be seeing, I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, a record number of Black plays and musicals on Broadway for the first time, I believe. And so, do you think that this, coming together the way that you did last year had any influence on this?
Yes and no. I think that yes, while so many shows had been written and were hoping to come to Broadway anyway, I'm sure that these plays just weren't created in the past year. For instance, Alice Childress's play, Trouble in Mind. I think what's happened is with all of the protests last year and all of the outrage over the murder of George Floyd and the sensitivity that the entire world has gotten for Black people and the inequities that we have lived with for so many years, I think it finally, some people, a light bulb just went off in so many places that we cannot continue this way. So while we may have swung the pendulum so far to the right, which I think is great, I think that it is the reaction of this, of so many wanting to see more representation of Black people on stage. And not only on stage, I must be very clear to say that we have representation of Black people on stage. We have had that. We're talent. We sing and dance. But when it comes to the productions, the crew, the pipeline for people that are trying to get into casting or directing or scenic design, all of those areas, those we have been, not purposefully, but I do believe we've been shut out of those areas because so many times people just aren't considering that it would be great to have the diversity of a young Black woman or a young Black man or a young Black person that might have a different perspective on this story and telling this story in casting, for instance, or backstage. I can't tell you how many shows I've done on Broadway that where everyone on the stage has been Black, but the entire creative team has been white, or or the entire crew has been white. My hair designer, my makeup designer, everyone around me has been white and male predominantly, and then we would have issues with the portrayal of certain characters, and there's I think there literally is one Black woman that does hair in the industry that everyone knows, and her name is Cookie Jordan. We all know her, and Cookie gets hired for every show that has people with Black hair that needs to be natural. If it's processed or pressed, that's one thing, but Black hair is, as so many Black people know, it's not something you just brush and stick a pin in. Our hair is fragile, and people think that it isn't, but curly hair is much more fragile than straight hair. So we need a little bit more treatment and knowledge on how to deal with our hair. So that's one instance, and then there are other times when the entire creative team would be white, and there would be issues with with designing clothing that would fit properly, or making sure that certain colors bounce off of our skin properly. These are issues that, as actors, as Black actors, and I'll speak for myself, that I have had to deal with since the beginning of my career. And we're hoping that our new deal, is and all of our signatories, because we have several people who have signed the deal committing to changing the way we've done business in our industry in the past.
It's such a it's empowering, right?
Yeah.
To know that you can have this kind of impact on the entire industry. I wanted to shift gears a little bit and go back to you and your work. And I'm wondering if you can talk about why it's so important to you personally to be the type of storyteller that you are, to portray the women that you've portrayed.
Most of my career, I've played characters that have been in some way tormented, that have had some sort of tragic situation or flaw. There's something wrong with all the characters that I played, or something has happened to all of the characters that I played that has been quite brutal or traumatic. And I think we are all, and I can speak for myself, but I've heard this reverberated throughout so many artists and so many writers, that we're all a little fed up with trauma, with Black trauma.
Mm.
And I have always found that even in the roles that I've had to play, I would reach deeply to find the humanity and the vulnerability within each character that people would become, that the audience would could relate to, that could be sensitive to. Because while I may be in a situation where I'm being abused by my spouse, some people can sit back and watch that and not feel any empathy for it, because once again, here we are seeing brutality against a Black woman, and people can get kind of, I don't know, numb to that almost, because they've seen so much of it. And I really do abhor that, and I want the value of me as a human being to be sensitized. And so with all the characters that I played or chosen to play, that's been my personal secret mission, is to humanize my characters so much so that you are not thinking about my race. You're thinking about the fact that I am a woman who's being beaten by a man, or the fact that in a racial situation, like as in Ragtime, when the cops pretty much beat this woman to death, basically, that you see her humanity, and you have a feeling and empathy for her. So I've always tried to find the way within each character to make the character relatable, regardless of race. But it's hard when the history has been such that we see so much trauma, and our history is filled with so much torture and just maniacal hatred that people can, in entertainment particularly, become numb to it. Of course, we'll kill the black girl first or the black guy first. I mean, they're disposable. And so those kinds of broad strokes that have been painted and illustrated in entertainment for so many years, I think as a community, not only in black spaces, but in white spaces too, we're fed up with those types of stories. Black drama, yes, all day long. Black trauma, we're done. Basically.
Understood. No, I appreciate that. Listen, there are so many people who, would love to have the kind of career that you've had, would love to get into the theater, would love to be able to play the kinds of characters and roles that you've played. I'm wondering, when you get asked this question about what are some advice that you would give, what is the main piece of sound advice that you usually offer?
Well, it's usually two-part. The first part is, remember that this is a business and people are here to make money, and you are here to earn money. So learning the business, the finances of it, and learning what your own worth is first. I think that's the most important thing, because oftentimes actors want to act so bad and singers want to act so badly that they just will take whatever is offered, and not value themselves, and know that you are providing something that has worth to it, and that worth you must attach to it at every opportunity that you can. That's the first part that I like to say. It is a business. Learn the business. Research, study, learn the numbers. Secondly, I like to tell people that while my career, I may have been fortunate enough to have roles I've been cast in, and as quite frequently, as often as I have been, I've often been one or two in the spaces. When you think about how many Black women that are leading actors in theater, you can count us on one hand that you know of. There are hundreds, thousands that are talented in so many different ways, but there are a few of us that have had consistent opportunity to where you know our names. And that basically just has to do with the opportunities that have presented themselves. So I often say, create your opportunity if it's not there. If you don't have that audition that's calling, write something, produce something, put it on in your community, videotape it. And now with so much social media and all these streaming networks, we see that there's room for everyone to get it done. But sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring sometimes can be a little disheartening. So in the meantime, while you're waiting for the phone to ring, continue to create, continue to blossom, and you might find something that's even better for you that you have participated in creating, and you earn more money.
I guess my last question for you is, what keeps you going? What keeps you inspired? You've inspired so many just by the work that you do. What helps you keep moving along and staying, excited about the work that you do.
I just don't see an end. I don't see I just don't see an end. I don't see the finish line. I don't think I'm finished. I am now making it. I'm also wearing a new hat now. I'm going into producing, so that's something I've always wanted to do. It's an area of our industry that I feel uh, I have some experience because I've been in this business for so many years. I know every different department. I know how things work. And so I have an amazing uh, producing mentor, I'll call him. And he has been teaching me the business and teaching me the ropes and actually going to bring me on to be a co-producer of a couple musicals and plays that he's working on. So I'm excited about just going on. I just don't see an end date. That's the only way I can say it. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy finding new ways to engage what I know, and I just don't think I'm done. I'm in my 50s, and I love being in my 50s. I find it fascinating that it took me to get in my 50s to become a sought after love interest on television with James Spader in The Blacklist. I think that's hilarious that now I'm like the girlfriend that someone's fighting for. I've never had that in my career. All these years, I've never been the girl that the guy fights for. And it took
Wow.
me getting into my 50s to find a role where the guy is fighting for the girl. And I just love it. So I'm not done.
No, that's wonderful. No, you're definitely not done. So remind everyone about Trouble in Mind. It opens October 29th. Is that correct?
29th. Yes,
Yeah.
October 29th on Broadway, and we run through January 2nd, I believe. I might be wrong, but the first week of January. And yeah, tickets are on sale now. It's an incredible piece of theater. It's funny, it's moving, and it was written by a dynamic Black woman.
Well, let's end it there. That's just like the icing on the cake. Thank you so much, LaChanze. It was wonderful
Sure.
talking with you. Thank you for being a part of the Root Institute, and we wish you all the best with the new play.